The betting hall erupted in mechanical chittering and synthesized laughter as the next contestant was dragged into the combat arena. Poor bastard didn't even know what was coming. 3 massive Gorvok warriors stood waiting in the center of the ring, their razor-sharp claws gleaming under the harsh spotlights. Each one stood nearly 9 feet tall, with muscles that could crush steel beams and hide thick enough to deflect plasma rounds. And then there was Jake. Jake Martinez looked about as threatening as a wet paper bag in a hurricane, standing barely 6 feet tall, weighing maybe 180 pounds, soaking wet. He shuffled into the arena wearing nothing but torn cargo pants and a faded Earth Band t-shirt. His dark hair hung in greasy strands over tired brown eyes, and he moved with the casual indifference of someone who'd rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. This has got to be some kind of joke, wheezed Coordinator Vex through his breathing apparatus. The slug-like alien's eye stalk swiveled toward his assistant, who was frantically checking the betting odds on his datapad. Tell me this isn't the human everyone's been talking about. Tell me this isn't the so-called terror from the legendary Deathworld called Earth. His assistant, a nervous 3-key with twitching antenna, pulled up Jake's file. According to our sources, sir, this specimen was captured from a human merchant vessel 3 cycles ago. Standard Class C sentient. Nothing special in his genetic markers. Average strength, average reflexes, average everything. Vex's massive form jiggled with what passed for laughter among his species. Average? The crowds paid premium rates to see this legendary human warrior in action. Look at him. He's practically asleep on his feet. Down in the arena, Jake yawned and scratched his stomach. He glanced up at the roaring crowd with mild annoyance, like they were interrupting his afternoon nap. The 3 Gorvok warriors began their traditional pre-battle ritual, roaring and beating their chests, working themselves into a killing frenzy. Jake watched this display with the enthusiasm of someone waiting for a bus. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms, the announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. Welcome to tonight's main event. In the red corner, we have the unstoppable trio known as the Blood Reapers. 3-time galactic champions with over 200 confirmed kills between them. The crowd went wild. Betting terminals lit up as aliens placed their wagers. And in the blue corner, the announcer continued with barely concealed amusement. We have the mysterious human from the infamous Deathworld Earth. Give it up for, There was a pause as he checked his notes. Jake. Just Jake. The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone in the crowd started laughing. Then another. Soon, the entire stadium was in hysterics. Jake raised his hand in a half-hearted wave. Hi there. Listen, is this going to take long? Because I was kind of hoping to grab some food after this. The lead Gorvok warrior, a scarred brute named Krug, stopped his intimidation display and stared. Did this soft skin just ask about dinner? I think he did, Brother Krug, replied the second warrior, Vash. Perhaps he wishes to know what his last meal will taste like. The third warrior, Morak, cracked his knuckles with sounds like breaking tree branches. I vote we show him what Gorvok cuisine looks like, starting with his intestines. Jake sighed and looked up at the announcer's booth. Are you guys actually going to start this thing, or are we just going to stand here making threats all day? Because, honestly, the threat is getting a bit repetitive. Coordinator Vex leaned forward in his luxury box, his eye stalks focused on the human. Something was off about this creature. Most sentients facing the Blood Reapers would be paralyzed with terror by now. This human looked bored. Begin the combat, the announcer declared. The moment the words left his vocal cords, Krug launched himself at Jake with a roar that shook the arena walls. His claws extended to their full 8-inch length, aimed directly at the human's throat. The crowd held its collective breath. Jake stepped slightly to the left. Krug flew past him like a freight train, crashed into the arena wall, and crumpled to the ground in a heap of confused alien warrior. The stadium fell silent. Huh, Jake said, looking down at the stunned Gorvok. That was easier than expected. Vash and Morak exchanged glances. This had to be some kind of fluke. No way this scrawny human had just dodged their brother's attack that easily. Lucky move, soft skin, Vash snarled, circling Jake like a predator. Let's see you try that again. Try what again? Jake asked, genuinely confused. Standing here? I mean, sure, I can keep doing that. Vash charged, his massive fists swinging in wide arcs that could have pulverized a battle tank. Jake ducked under the first swing, stepped around the second, and somehow ended up behind the warrior, without seeming to hurry at all. You know, Jake said conversationally as Vash spun around, you guys are really loud. Like, unnecessarily loud. Are you overcompensating for something? Morak had heard enough. He grabbed a massive warhammer from the weapon rack, the kind of weapon designed to crack starship hulls, hefting it above his head with both hands. He brought it down where Jake had been standing. Key words had been. Jake was now standing about 3 feet to the right, hands in his pockets, watching the hammer embed itself 6 inches deep in the arena floor. Well, that's not coming out anytime soon, Jake observed. You might want to consider a lighter weapon next time. Maybe something in the two-handed sword category. Or a knife staff. I've always thought staff were underrated. Morak stared at his hammer, then at Jake, then back at his hammer. The weapon was completely stuck. In the luxury boxes, the betting terminals had gone haywire. Odds that had started at 10,000 to 1 against a human were now fluctuating wildly as confused bookmakers tried to figure out what was happening. This is impossible, muttered Vex. Humans are supposed to be weak, fragile. Their homeworld classification clearly states they're a Class C species. His assistant's antenna was twitching so fast they were practically vibrating. Sir, I'm getting some updated information on human classifications. It seems there might have been a slight error in our intelligence reports. What kind of error? Well, sir, it appears that Earth isn't classified as a standard life-bearing world. According to these new files, it's classified as a Class Omega Deathworld. Vex eye stalk snapped toward his assistant, so fast they made an audible crack. A what? Class Omega, sir. The highest possible danger rating. Reserved for worlds so hostile that the very act of evolving there creates beings capable of surviving in literally any environment in the known galaxy. Down in the arena, Krug had recovered from his collision with the wall, and was now attempting to flank Jake along with his brothers. All 3 warriors moved in perfect coordination, their centuries of combat experience showing as they tried to box a human in. Jake watched their approach with the same expression most people reserve for mildly interesting television commercials. Okay, look, he said as the 3 aliens closed in, I can see where this is going, and I feel like I should probably warn you guys about something. Krug was the first to reach him, swinging a clawed fist that could have punched through a bulkhead. Jake caught the fist in his bare hand. The sound of alien bones breaking echoed throughout the suddenly silent arena. See, here's the thing, Jake continued, still holding Krug's shattered fist while the warrior screamed in agony. Where I come from, we have these things called hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, predators that hunt in packs and can run at 50 miles per hour, predators that hunt alone and can bite through car doors, whether that can kill you in about 30 different ways before breakfast. Vash tried to grab Jake from behind. Without even turning around, Jake elbowed him in the solar plexus. The impact sent the 9-foot alien flying across the arena to land in a crumpled heap against the far wall. We have diseases, Jake went on, now addressing Morak, who was desperately trying to pull his hammer out of the floor. Viruses that can kill millions, bacteria that eat flesh, parasites that literally eat your brain while you're still alive. And that's just the microscopic stuff. Morak finally freed his weapon and swung it at Jake's head with enough force to crater a small moon. Jake caught the hammer mid-swing with one hand. But you know what the really crazy part is? Jake asked, gently taking the massive weapon away from the now terrified alien warrior. All that stuff I just mentioned, that's just Tuesday on Earth. We consider that normal environmental conditions. He held up the warhammer and examined it like he was considering buying it at a yard sale. This is pretty nice craftsmanship, solid construction, good weight distribution. Then he bent it in half with his bare hands. The crowd was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space. The point I'm trying to make here, Jake said, tossing the ruined weapon aside, is that you three pick a fight with someone who considers your entire species' homeworld to be suitable for a relaxing vacation. I'm not trying to be mean about it. It's just a fact. Krug, still cradling his broken hand, looked up at the human with dawning horror. What are you? Jake smiled, and for the first time since entering the arena, he looked genuinely amused. Me? I'm just a guy who used to fix air conditioning units for a living. Pretty boring job, actually, but thanks for asking. The silence stretched on for several more seconds before Coordinator Vex's voice crackled over the arena speakers. Combat suspended. Medical teams to the arena floor immediately. As alien medics rushed to tend to the broken warriors, Jake waved to the crowd again. Thanks for having me, everyone. This was fun. Different, but fun. He started walking toward the exit, then paused and turned back to address the stadium. Oh, and just so you know, he called out, his voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence, I'm getting pretty hungry. I don't suppose anyone knows where a guy can get a decent burger around here. 3 hours after the arena incident, Jake found himself sitting in Coordinator Vex's private office, enjoying what the aliens called a nutrition cube, but tasted remarkably like cardboard soaked in motor oil. Across from him, Vex's eye stalks were practically tied in knots as he tried to process the paperwork explaining how his 3 champion fighters were now in intensive care with injuries that shouldn't have been possible. So, let me understand this correctly. Vex wheezed through his breathing apparatus. You broke Krug's hand, collapsed Vash's ribcage, and somehow managed to bend Morak's warhammer into a pretzel, all without breaking a sweat. Jake nodded and took another bite of the nutrition cube. Pretty much, yeah. Although, technically, I think I did sweat a little. It's kind of warm in here. Do you guys not believe in air conditioning? We keep the temperature at optimal levels for most species. Vex replied automatically, then caught himself. That's not the point. The point is that you just destroyed 3 of the most feared warriors in this sector of the galaxy. Destroyed seems like a strong word, Jake said, considering this. I mean, they're still alive. Bruised. Sure. Probably gonna need some physical therapy. But destroyed? Nah. Vex assistant, the nervous, streaky named Pip, was frantically typing on his datapad. Sir, the medical bay reports are coming in. Krug has 17 broken bones in his hand and wrist. Vash has 3 cracked ribs and a concussion. Morak has severe muscle trauma in both arms and appears to be suffering from psychological shock. See? Jake pointed at Pip with his nutrition cube. Alive. Probably learned a valuable lesson about picking fights with strangers. Valuable lesson? Vex's voice rose to a squeak. You hospitalized the Blood Reapers. Do you have any idea what this means for my business? Jake shrugged. That you should probably invest in better health insurance for your fighters? The coordinator's eye stalks swiveled toward each other in what Jake was beginning to recognize as an alien expression of extreme frustration. This is a disaster. The betting pools lost millions of credits. The crowd is demanding refunds. Half the spectators think the fight was rigged. Was it rigged? Jake asked with genuine curiosity. Of course it wasn't rigged. Vex exploded. If it had been rigged, I would have bet on you instead of losing my life savings when you bent that hammer like it was made of soft clay. Ah. Jake nodded sympathetically. Yeah, that was probably poor financial planning on your part. Pip looked up from his datapad with wide eyes. Sir, we're getting calls from combat arenas across the sector. Word has spread about tonight's match. Everyone wants to book the human for their own events. Absolutely not, Vex said firmly. This creature is far too dangerous. We're sending him back to the slave markets immediately. Actually, Jake interrupted, finishing off his nutrition cube and wiping his hands on his pants. I was thinking we could make a deal. Both aliens stared at him. A deal? Vex asked suspiciously. Sure, you want to make money off fights, right? I want to get off this station and find my way back to Earth. Seems like we could help each other out. Absolutely not. You're far too unpredictable. Too dangerous. Jake raised an eyebrow. Dangerous? Vex, I just spent the last 3 hours eating your terrible food and making polite conversation. How exactly am I dangerous? You destroyed my champions. I defended myself. There's a difference. Jake leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under even his modest weight. Look, here's what I'm thinking. You set up fights, I participate, we split the profits. I get transportation credits, you get rich. Everyone wins. Vex considered this for about 2 seconds. What's to stop you from killing every opponent I put you against? The same thing that stopped me from killing your 3 buddies downstairs. I'm not a psychopath. Vex, I just happen to be really, really good at not getting hurt by people who are trying to hurt me. That's an interesting way to phrase superhuman combat abilities, Pip muttered. Superhuman? Jake laughed. Buddy, I'm probably the least impressive human you'll ever meet. I spent most of my adult life installing air conditioning units in Florida. Do you know how boring that is? Florida? Vex asked. Think of the most hostile, dangerous environment you can imagine. Now add humidity, alligators, and really weird news stories. That's Florida. Pip's antenna twitched as he accessed his databank. According to galactic records, Earth has several continental regions that are considered uninhabitable by most species. Florida appears to be one of them, listed as having extreme weather patterns, dangerous wildlife, and something called bath salt zombies. Yeah, that was a weird summer, Jake admitted. But my point is, I'm not some kind of super warrior. I'm just a regular guy from a world where everything is constantly trying to kill you in creative ways. It builds character. Vex was quiet for a long moment, his eye stalk swiveling as he calculated potential profits. If I agreed to this arrangement, what would you want in terms of compensation? Transportation to the nearest human-controlled system, plus enough credits for food and basic supplies. I'm not greedy. And in return, I'll fight whoever you want to fight, within reason. I'm not going to murder people for entertainment, but I'm happy to demonstrate why picking fights with humans is generally a bad idea. The crowds would go insane, Pip whispered. The betting pools alone would generate millions of credits per match. Vex's business instincts were clearly warring with his survival instincts. How do I know you won't just escape the first chance you get? Jake spread his hands. Where am I going to go? I'm stuck on a space station in the middle of nowhere. I don't have a ship, and I don't even speak most of the languages out here. Running away would be pretty stupid. And what happens when you do get passage to human space? Then I go home. You find some other entertainment for your arena, and we both go on with our lives. I'm not looking to become a career gladiator. Vex, I just want to get home and maybe convince my ex-wife that I'm not dead, so she stops spending my life insurance money. The coordinator was silent for several minutes, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. One condition. You fight under controlled circumstances. No weapons, no killing, and if I say stop, you stop. Done. And you split the profit 60-40 in my favor. 50-50 or no deal. 55-45. Jake considered this. Deal, but I want it in writing. And I want to review the contract before I sign anything. Where I come from, we have a saying about oral agreements, which is, they're not worth the paper they're printed on. Vex's eye stalks crossed in confusion, but Pip was already pulling up a contract template on his datapad. This could actually work, the assistant said excitedly. We market it as the ultimate challenge. Warrior species from across the galaxy come to test themselves against a legendary Deathworld human. Win or lose, everyone goes home alive but educated. Educated about what? Vex asked, about why you don't pick fights with species that evolved on planets where the weather has names and the wildlife has lawyers. Jake replied cheerfully. An hour later, Jake found himself back in his holding cell, but now it had been upgraded to what the aliens called guest quarters. Still looked like a jail cell to him, but at least this one had a window and a bed that didn't feel like it was made from recycled concrete. He was just settling in for the night when Pip appeared at his door, looking nervous. Jake, there's something you should know about tomorrow night's match. What's that? Word about your fight with the Blood Reapers has reached the Korthak Empire. They're sending a champion. Should that mean something to me? Pip's antenna drooped. The Korthak are, well, they're what most species consider to be the ultimate warriors. They've never lost a champion in single combat. Ever. Jake yawned. Sounds like they're due for a learning experience. Jake, I'm serious. This isn't like tonight. The Korthak champion isn't just strong or fast. It's been genetically engineered for combat. Enhanced reflexes, reinforced skeleton, redundant organ systems. It was literally built to be the perfect killing machine. Jake considered this. Well, that's interesting. What's its name? Destroyer of Worlds. Really? That's not ominous at all. Jake chuckled. What's it look like? 12 feet tall for arms, natural armor plating, and claws that can cut through starship hulls. Sounds like it compensates for a lot of personal insecurities with the whole intimidating appearance thing. Pip stared at him. Aren't you even slightly concerned? Jake shrugged. Pip, I once had to repair an air conditioning unit during a Category 5 hurricane while being chased by an angry alligator that had somehow learned to climb ladders. This Destroyer of Worlds thing sounds like a Tuesday. How do alligators learn to climb ladders? Very carefully, as it turns out. Jake lay down on his cot and put his hands behind his head. Thanks for the heads up, though I appreciate the warning. Jake! Yeah. What if you can't beat this thing? Jake was quiet for a moment, then smiled in the darkness. Then I guess the universe is about to learn why humans are considered the galaxy's most persistent pest species. I don't understand. You will tomorrow night, Pip. You will. As the alien walked away, shaking his head in confusion, Jake closed his eyes and tried to get some rest. Tomorrow was going to be another interesting day in what was turning out to be a very strange vacation from his regular life. Somewhere else on the station, in a heavily reinforced holding bay, something that called itself Destroyer of Worlds was sharpening claws the size of combat knives and dreaming of the glory it would earn by being the first warrior to defeat the legendary human. It would be disappointing